Welcome to the continuation of the Elevate Rapid City virtual trainings. We're really glad you joined us today. These are a series of trainings since the pandemic started. They're being offered from health insurance, mental health, marketing, business resources. If you've missed any of those, you can go and subscribe to the Elevate Rapid City YouTube channel and find all the past trainings as well as a recording of this one we're going to get to today. You can also view any upcoming events on the Elevate Rapid City Facebook page. So make sure you like and subscribe to all of our various social media and YouTube. My name is Mitch Nachtigall. I'm the Director of Innovation and Entrepreneurship for Elevate Rapid City, and also the Director of Ascent Innovation, which is the incubator under Elevate Rapid City. I'll get to an introduction of this handsome gentleman here in just a moment. Just going to do a couple housekeeping things here. So today's webinar is the fourth in a virtual series of a spotlight that we have been doing for over a year now here at the incubator. And decided to continue on virtually. Prior to this, we were all getting together for lunch, really in an attempt for our incubator startups and tenants to learn about each other. And when this all went down, we decided, well, let's just keep going virtually. So I'm really happy to keep these going and happy that you can continue to join us. So this month, I'm really excited to be joined by one of the newer members of the building, even though you've been here about a year and a half now, I guess. I'm joined now by Jeremy Warner of Omnitech. They've been about a year and a half now with us, as I mentioned. They're a satellite office of Omnitech out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Jeremy, thanks for joining us today. So Jeremy, this is the second time that I've had you in a spotlight. The first time I've had you virtually, but I'm sure it's a new audience from what it's been in the past. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself? What's your story, how you came to be in the Black Hills?
Sure. So I went to college at Sioux Falls. I graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science in 2013. I moved to Fargo, took a job with a software engineering company up there, married another Mines grad, and about 2018 we started trying to figure out, is this where we want to be long term? Where do we want to be? What do we want to be doing? And about that time, we kind of started looking and said, okay, Fargo's not for us. What is? And looking at Rapid City, all the places.
I think we want to speak up a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
We started looking at Rapid City and a couple of other places and looking for jobs, and started talking with Omnitech a little bit, and this kind of opportunity came up. We said, okay, well, Rapid it is, and we're happy to get back here. We missed the hills a lot. We missed, kind of being in a smaller town. The drier climate actually is a big part of it. And then, being able to be back at near close to the School of Mines on campus here and work with interns was a major draw for me personally. It's something I really like doing. So, kind of ticked all the boxes and let us get back to Rapid City. So it's pretty fantastic.
Okay, great. So then tell us then about your current position and what Omnitech does as a company.
Sure. So Omnitech was founded in 1998, I believe, in Sioux Falls, providing custom high-end software solutions. So that's expanded quite a bit over the years. We do data work, we do websites, we do small stuff, we do e-commerce pieces, data integration, custom software, kind of runs the gamut. Small companies to fairly large ones. My job here is kind of twofold. So I'm a business analyst. So what that means for us is, part of my job is to work with clients to figure out, how can we solve your problem, right? What do you need? Is it a data solution? Is it custom software? Do you have something already that'll do it for you and you don't need me, right?
Yeah, sure.
There's that aspect to it. And then also, I get to work with the interns, which is pretty fun.
Yeah.
Kind of mentor and work with them in year as we go through that process.
You were an intern yourself at one point in this building.
Yeah, I was actually an intern for one of the current tenants, actually 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of coming full circle here.
Yeah,
so.
that's awesome. That's really cool. What would you say then makes Omnitech different from other companies in your field?
I think there's a couple things. One, we really tried to provide kind of a broad service. So, if you bring somebody on, if a client engages me, they're not getting access to just my knowledge and skills. They're getting access to everything else that everybody else that Omnitech knows how to do. So, I've had clients, I do mostly software stuff. I don't do a lot of data work. Okay. I've had clients ask, hey, do you guys have someone who could take a look at this database or see what this is slow? And the answer is yes, we do. We got a bunch of guys here. That's what they do.
Sure.
So I think it's that breadth of knowledge that's a big piece of that. But the other part is that, we're not coming into a situation or into an engagement to say, hey, let's build this and get out, right? We're coming to say, okay, how can we help your business move forward? So I was working with a client a couple months ago, and actually, just like I just kind of mentioned, they had some software and said, hey, we've got this, we want to do X, Y, Z with it, so figure out how that's going to work.
Yeah.
So we go look at it and do some research, and it turns out the software they have will already do that. They just had to, I think they had to buy an add-on or something. So, well, it's less work for me, but it's much better for the client to be able to go do that as opposed to paying us to go build something custom.
Sure. So not always down for the sale then.
Right. It's about client success, not making a sale every time.
So I forgot to mention everybody. We kind of jumped right in, but Jeremy and I become friends over the last year, and so I'm going to have a great conversation with him. But please jump in and ask your questions as well, and we'll get to those here as we go. So. Jeremy, then how about, you mentioned the internships, but how about the office here specifically in the incubator? What are you doing for Omnitech here at Rapid City?
Well, we're doing two things, right? So obviously it's the in-year internships at the school mines. We have a pretty good summer program in Sioux Falls. They've been running for years now, and they've got it pretty well down. So I get them when they come back. So we have the internship component. And that's important. But the other piece is that we're just, we're a regular office, right? So we're a location in Rapid City, so we can do face-to-face, not so much anymore, but we can do, face-to-face interactions with clients in Rapid. And I mean, we're very not location dependent, right? I work with clients in Sioux Falls and with other states and in Rapid City, right? Okay. So it's just another full-time office for us too.
Sure.
So
a little bit more about that intern life cycle. So you're probably involved a little bit in recruitment, and then you said, so like juniors, kind of where you start, or
sophomores and juniors.
Sophomores and juniors,
yeah.
Okay.
I think we shoot for data structures. It's kind of our CS course.
Okay.
So.
Okay, and so then they're recruited and they go to the summer internship first, or do you have them for a year first?
Usually we do the summer internship first.
Okay.
And that's very much a learning experience, a learning internship. We really push them through tasks that are designed to help them learn technology.
Okay.
We're doing tasks. It's not like, hey, client XYZ needs this done, go do it. We don't have them do any client work typically during the summer. It's more, hey, go build a game. Then we can add this to the game. And those tasks are designed to kind of flesh out the skills that they're going to need.
Sure.
So, we're not looking to get work out of them necessarily so much as what projects can we put in front of you to increase your skills and grow, not only individually but as a team. And then when they come back, what I'm trying to do is maintain that relationship, maintain the growth, and keep them going to the school year so they're not, losing that professional touch. And, keep learning, keep growing.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So, Jeremy, we talked that we did a face-to-face spotlight with a room full of people right in this room about a year ago, maybe not quite a year ago. How's your experience been in the incubator, or what's changed? I mean, COVID aside, or with COVID, but.
Well, we're in a bigger space now, which has been great. Taking a while to kind of get moved over there, starting to fill it up. It's a little empty in the summer.
Sure.
When it's full interns, it's kind of hopping. But that was great though, because it was a little cramped up front. The office manager, I'll tell you what, he's a little.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, staffing could be better. I'm sure. Yeah.
No, it's been great at Ascent. I've got no real complaints. I'm looking forward to what the next place brings, and it's been a great environment to kind of learn, running an office and what that kind of entails, which I've had to learn and pick up, and then also meeting people who are in similar industries or similar areas, and you start to make contacts and say, hey, so-and-so's looking for a job. Well, bring them in, we'll interview them, that sort of stuff. And then you meet people who are in similar positions as you are, right? Hey, how did you handle the internship? Or what are you doing for senior design this year? And having people around you kind of bounce that off of is very helpful. So.
Sure, yeah. But I know you're a big part of the incubator community, but you talk about similar positions in similar industries. You also helped to start Compile Black Hills. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So before I came back, there were a couple of Compile Black Hills meetings before I came back to Rapid. and then I think it kind of faded a little bit, and we picked it back up. We did one event up at Black Hills Energy last year, I believe. It was after we talked, I think. And then we had another one scheduled for March, which we canceled for when COVID kind of blew up. We weren't really sure if that was a good choice or not. So we said, you know what, better safe than sorry at this point. And so right now we're looking at, we've actually been talking to some other co-founders about virtual events and what we can do. How things have, I hate to say calmed down because they haven't really.
Right.
It's in, kind of in a new, figuring out what's going on now. So.
Sure. But for those that don't know, what is Compile?
Oh, sure. So Compile Black Hills is essentially a user group just for software engineers. There are actually a lot of software engineers in Rapid City. They're just, no huge companies outside of like Black Hills Energy really employing a whole bunch of people. So we think it's valuable to, meet other people doing similar things, learn about what's going on, learn about what new things people are doing. I certainly have been exposed to different technology stacks and different methods for doing things just from talking the little stuff we've done so far. So you get to swap notes and compare ideas and hone your skills that way. It's really helpful. So
I think, my experience as a grad and also in the military, I think professional associations are just so important and a lot of times underestimated. So I really appreciate you guys taking that on because it's a industry we're trying to grow in the community. And so from my perspective and my job, you're helping the whole community and all of economic development by trying to gather those people and could help with community recruiting and, a lot of things. We've talked before that as we've talked to different companies that may come into the market, software companies, they've asked about that kind of stuff. Like, hey, is there kind of an association or club or something like that, because they want to know about the workforce and who's out there. And like you said, like there's not a big pool. So how do you kind of find where everybody's congregating? So I think that's fantastic. So then, Jeremy, kind of getting into present day, I know you and I had talked just one-on-one probably 2 months ago. And at the time, you guys really hadn't seen, you're kind of a online presence, if you will, or something. So you hadn't seen a lot of effects at the time, but I think that's changed a little bit for Omnitech now, like the rest of the world. So
yeah, so when around March or whatever, we went kind of full remote, and it's pretty much say, hey, you want to go home, go home. Or just empty the office out. There was like one of our partners was still going in every day, but it's just him in the office.
Sure.
And we had some effects, right? When you're home with your kids or whatever, there's disruption. But we communicate virtually normally, right? I work with guys in Sioux Falls every day. I work with guys in other states all the time. So we didn't have any major issues there. The team was able to kind of adapt. And we've gone back now. They made a call. We made a call here to say, okay, we think it's reasonable to go back. I think it's in June, I think. And we're doing hand sanitizer and temperature tests stuff, and just trying to plot the best course, from a safety perspective, and balancing safety with, are we still doing things, and is it still important? Or what level do we need to hit? I think it's it's still a week by week thing. If we see another spike, we might have to pull back a little bit. Yeah, that's kind of been the biggest impact there. I think it's impacted the sales team a little bit more.
Sure.
Mitch, I'm as busy as I've ever been.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. We hired 3 new people in May, interns on board. I think we just hired 2 more the past month. So we're still growing. We're still chugging pretty hard. But I think there's been some impact. But the sales team and the leadership team have done a really good job of figuring out what how okay, it's going to change the business a little bit. How do we react? How do we flex with it to not be majorly disrupted? So I think we're still doing okay and not having real major negative effects, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and that it's going to be important that the companies that are strong or able to kind of keep going through this, they're going to have to pull the economy along in some ways, I think. So that's good to hear that you're as busy as you've ever been. So yeah. Oh, all right, we got a question here. Let's see. Since Omnitech has staff in multiple locations, this remote work culture was probably less of a learning curve for you. What advice would you give to teams that still work through the transition with COVID? Any tools?
Sure. So we use Google Microsoft Teams, like our kind of primary communication and team tool. So that includes chat and video calls and interface with Outlook. So I'll get a meeting dropped in my calendar, and it'll be via Teams almost every time.
Sure.
Whether it's in person or has someone from Sioux Falls involved, we're almost always on a video call. All our laptops have webcams, right? We've got conference rooms set up for doing that for different locations. One of the difficult things that we've had to pick up, or we kind of have to learn as an organization is, how do you do calls when there's 4 people in one room and 1 person remote? You need to kind of think about that remote person and their experience, and how you include them in the conversation so they don't get lost. People talking locally, that's kind of a learned skill. And then additionally, almost at the beginning, you kind of have to over communicate. I can't assume that my PM is going to know what I'm thinking, or I can't assume that the developer knows what I need, what they need to go do next because I assigned a task to them. I need to say, hey, so and so, I assigned this to you. Is that cool? And do you have any questions? Just to really prompt that communication that would naturally happen in person.
Sure.
It doesn't happen as much. We're more reluctant to communicate typically over text, via chat and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that being really intentional about communication, making sure the right tools are in place is really important. Slack, I don't know if Slack has a video
chat. I don't think so, but
Teams does a video piece, and it also does the text, which is really helpful. So I like the tool quite a bit.
Sure.
So
thanks for the question, Shiloh. I think we had talked a while back. You mentioned the 4 people in one room and the one remote, and you'd said that that was a little bit beneficial for you being a satellite office. When everybody went remote, it was kind of like, hey team, this is hard, isn't it?
You start to figure out, hey, we need to pause and make sure that these are happening. So I wouldn't choose to go remote again to get that outcome, but it's a little silver lining for us.
Yeah.
So that is it is one of the skills you got to learn, though, right? And we're getting really good at it now.
Yeah.
But are you calling the person who's remote? Are you making sure they're engaged in the conversation? You're making sure they're a part of the team, not just listening in, kind of thing. Good AV equipment helps too.
Sure.
The company's invested quite a bit in good speakers and microphones and TVs and stuff. So that's been really helpful.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that's something we should look at probably. So kind of on that note, with the remote work and Microsoft Teams and all that, how do you integrate your interns, or do you kind of go to meetings and then come back and say, hey interns, this is what you do, or are they involved in some of those planning meetings, or how does it normally work, I guess?
So 2 things with that. So typically we don't have interns doing client work.
Sure.
Right. So on the rare occasion that they might pick up a task or something, so we do with a client and say, hey, are you cool if we have an intern go do this, whatever, sure. Then they're not typically face-to-face with the client. It's kind of task-driven. But so part of the in-year process, we typically do a senior design project.
Okay.
And this is what we did last year, and I'm planning to do it again this year, where we essentially put the senior design team in actually kind of my role. Say, hey, you're going to go talk to the client. You're going to figure out what they need. You're going to work with them to determine the deliverables and sort out, how are we going to fill this need and what's the best way to do it. And it's free to the we're actually working with a charity to do it.
Okay.
So we're not charging them for it, and they're gracious enough to help us with this process and help with the learning, which is fantastic. But that's kind of how we push the interns and kind of start to push that. Hey, you're going to be in front of clients. How do you figure out how to interact with them? How do you figure out how to ask the right questions and figure out what needs to be done? For internal work, though, which is most of what our interns do, it's task-based. You sit down or get on a call, say, hey, here's what we got to do. Do you understand the problem? Do you have any questions? When you hit something that I didn't cover, let me know, because you'll hit something I didn't talk about.
Yeah.
So
with that senior design project, you said you're planning on doing another one, so must have been successful. Like, kind of how did that go, and maybe how the client felt about it and all that?
So yeah, so we're working with a charity in town here last year, and I have to talk to them about doing it again this year. The senior design program got kind of rejiggered a little bit
sure, I
here
suppose,
recently, so I gotta sort that all out yet. Coming down to the wire, but you know, I think we had a really good experience last year working with them, and you know, they were very gracious to give us, you know, a couple hours of time, you know, to kind of come up with the designs, and we got a product built, and it works, and it fits kind of their minimum viable product requirements. And there's a whole backlog of things that we'd like to add. We didn't get to, but you know, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Some things that I think I could have done better, you know, just from a guidance perspective. So I'm looking forward to trying that better this next year and kind of iterating on that process.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
keep the questions coming, everybody. I've got a few more for Jeremy here, but help me out. So you know that maybe this one isn't a question, but if you have an answer to it, go ahead. So you're kind of in a unique position where COVID and affecting how colleges go about things, that's going to affect kind of your day-to-day operations as well, isn't it?
yeah, and we're still trying to sort out, you know, what exactly it looks like. You know, if the School Minds campus shuts down, and they say, you know, students are going to classes anymore. Well, we say work from home. Do we say still come in? Like, what are we going to do? Right? What's the safest thing to do? What's the most effective thing to do?
Right.
Where's that at? You know, classes are changing a little bit. So I don't know if we're partial online this year. I haven't found out yet.
I haven't seen the full plan, I guess, for the colleges.
But we'll have to adapt to that. You know, we always work around student schedules, right? You know, you got tests this week. Okay, you're not coming in. Cool, that's fine.
Sure.
But I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, for us and then for anyone else with in your interns, it's going to be about flexibility this year. Just, you know, what works and what doesn't, and keep trying things and smile. And if it doesn't work, try something new.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
This was a good for learning point for you going forward, I guess. I mean, if you do things when they're at their hardest, I guess it'll be easier whenever this is finally behind us, I suppose.
We'll see. Yeah.
Jeremy, where do you see this office and Omnitech in the future? Like, what do you see as kind of the goals organization-wide, and what do you hope to see out of this office in the next few years?
Well, I think we're certainly trying to grow the Rapid City office, increase the number of full-time engineers we have here. I think Rapid's a great place to be. You know, I think it's a really attractive place. We'd like to bring, you know, or give more people the opportunity to come back.
Sure.
Right. That's kind of what I got. Right. So I left and said, hey, I kind of like to come back, and you know, got that opportunity. I'd like to offer that to more people if we can. You know, keep growing the office. You know, we're really busy, so good engineers are important. I don't know what the long-term expansion plans are, but we're not stagnant. We're kind of iteratively growing.
Yeah.
So I'm positive on the future.
Sure.
But I don't know exactly what it's going to bring.
Sure. Good. Question from Ryan. Jeremy, do you have a favorite project or type of project that you've worked on? What did you like most about it? Thanks, Ryan.
I've got a client I work with, and he has a tendency to throw just off the wall things at me and say, hey, I want to do this. Like, I don't actually, yeah, I want to do this embedded thing. Like, I don't know anything about embedded systems, but we have guys who do let me talk to him.
Yeah.
He's a lot of fun. So we're doing some, he let me do a project with Azure Functions. So we're using serverless architecture. So instead of having a server that you provision onto, it's a series of chunks of code essentially that run, and you don't really worry about where they're running, with a Cosmos DB and some queues, and you know, it fit the application, it fit what he needed, and that's been a lot of fun to, you know, sort out, hey, this worked, this didn't work. You know, this pattern was great, this pattern wasn't so great. You know, here's what we do different in the future. Here's how we would change now. You know, getting to work with the cloud pieces is really fun, and you know, it's the resource costs are really low.
Okay.
You pay per execution of code essentially, as opposed to paying for a server. So it's been an interesting learning experience. So I guess my favorite projects are the ones where I have to learn a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Where I know enough to start from to give a confident estimate for how to do it. It's like, I'm going to learn this, to go fully sort out your problem. And then, cloud stuff is fun typically. So hopefully that answers the question kind of a roundabout way.
Sure. Maybe for all of us non-software engineers, can you give us a little bit more about kind of your day-to-day? I mean, is it a lot of coding, and like maybe if you can describe your average client? I mean, I don't want you to give any names, obviously, but or is there an average client, or is it all big, all small, every type? And
I don't actually know what the definition of like a large business is. I don't think we have any. I could be wrong with that. We might have enterprise or small enterprise customers. I'm not sure.
Okay.
A typical day for me probably involves a couple of status meetings, either internal or with the client.
Yeah.
Hey, this is the project. Here's where we're at. Here's the developers at. Here's what's coming next. Going over those things. Most of it's driven by one of our PMs, but I kind of got to be there to answer questions or to say, hey, here's the back end, or here's the technical thing, or here's the change you want. Coming in, I usually write code for several hours a day at a minimum. Depends on the kind of the day or what's going on. And then I usually spend quite a bit of time working with other developers saying, hey, here's how I estimated this, or here's how we planned this. Here's what I'm thinking. Does that work? Does that not work? Let's solve a bug. Let's get over a problem. So I do a lot of that as well. And then, depending on where we're at in the cycle of the project, I might be estimating, saying, hey, here's how we're going to take these parts, put them together to solve the overarching business problem that they've described. So it's a mix. It's less development than I did at my last job.
Okay.
More kind of planning and mentoring and helping.
Sure.
But I'm still writing code every day.
Okay.
So.
I've been in your area before, and I never looked over your shoulder, but I just picture you with like the matrix screen just coming down, and 4 monitors and headphones, and I know that's not quite what it looks like, but whenever you talk about doing code for several hours a day, that's what I assume you're doing. So. A couple more questions came in from Jessica. Thanks, Jessica. What sort of problems do you hear clients talking about the most?
Let's talk about the most. Do a lot of stuff. We get a mix of things. Most of the kind of common pieces are, hey, we've got X out of the box service and it does this really well, but we wish it would do these other things. Can you extend it? Can we add on to it? Can we add a second piece that ties into the data and exposes it for our clients or for our internal people?
Okay.
There's a lot of those kind of integration or modification or extension things. Because I don't want to write an ERP system from scratch for you unless that's really what you need, right? A lot of the times out-of-the-box solutions work just fine, but they maybe don't cover 100% of what you need. So we do quite a few things, right? I hear lots of kind of questions about, hey, I've got this. How do I tie it into this other system, or how do I extend it or expose the data, or the data guys get a lot of, okay, we have this data here. How do we report on it? How do we make sense of it, right? So they get a lot of that as well. So. That answers that.
Probably it does. I think. A question for me then: how does that work with kind of adding on to an out-of-the-box solution? You deal with a lot of licensing and things like that, or explain that a little more to me.
It depends. Different products will have different ways they can be extended.
Okay.
So some will be built for. They'll expose an API, or they'll expose data in a specific way and say, hey, you can do whatever you want with this at this point. Now, here you go. And others, you install the database locally, and you've got this code locally, and you're running it, and they don't have any extension points. So then we have to go into the database and start reading off their database.
Oh, wow.
Right? You have it locally, right? You can. And say, okay, this is what this looks like. Here's the logs. Here's the whatever. Let's pull it out and show it to you. Those are obviously harder to do than if they give you the interface. But most things have some extension point. Most people build it with an extension in some fashion. So
it really is the matrix. Yeah, that's so. Jessica's got another question. If I didn't know any better, this looks like a planted question, but we wouldn't do that here. So, can you talk more about the Omnitech company culture and what makes it a good place to work?
Sure.
Thanks, Jessica.
This is one of the things that was hard actually during COVID to keep this up. or during the kind of the lockdown to keep us up, but we really focus on learning a lot.
Okay.
So, I think every day of a week actually, there's a planned lunch and learn for different kind of learning teams.
Oh, wow.
Essentially. Where the company brings lunch in, and, you attend and you learn something new, or talk, or communicate, or take a training or something.
Okay.
And they buy you lunch, which is a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
And this happens all the time. We'll bring in interns and new hires, and they'll say, "Hey, have you done X, Y, Z this way?" And I'll go, "I've never seen that before. Let's go check it out." So there's a lot of, there's very little, "Oh, you're more senior than me, so you know how to do this." There's a lot more, is that the best way to do it? Hey, you send you an idea. Okay, that doesn't work for this reason, or does work for this reason. Let's sort it out and figure out what the best path is, whether it's from a guy with 2 months of experience or 20 years.
Sure.
So that equality and that being equitable between engineers is really nice. And we're focused on making sure that we're doing things, in the most up-to-date way, or the best way possible. Some of that's saying, hey, this technology is really new. We don't really want to try it yet. Maybe in a year we try it, or maybe it's really new and we're pretty sure it's going to work well. We got to really stay on top of that. I don't want to go to a client and say, hey, let's do it this way, and that's a 5-year-old method.
Sure.
I don't, our industry moves so fast. You gotta work to stay on top of it. The company really supports that, which is excellent. And we had kind of some trouble keeping that going a little bit during COVID, just because of the separation. Yeah, we're bringing that back a little bit now, and it's kind of coming back into its own, which is really great. And they're flexible, right? Your kid's crying, you're at home. Okay, go take care of the kid.
Yeah,
that's what you got to do. So it's a family first kind of place, which is really nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to expand a little bit. So you're obviously in an industry that's iterating by the day, maybe by the hour.
Yeah.
You mentioned the lunch and learns, but I suppose there's a chance occasionally where, especially these days, where an intern has been coding since they were 5 or 6 years old, maybe even so. Or maybe not quite that young, but it's getting to that point that So I suppose do you find occasionally where there's an intern that's like, wow, like that, that's kind of a world changer, or how do you deal with kind of some of that, and what's shiny and new versus what's tested and tried?
I think one of the things that really kind of tells you if something, if a new technology stack is going to be what you want to use or what you want to explore, if you want to hold off on it, right, is the experience.
Okay.
So I think the combination of saying, hey, so-and-so's been in the industry for 20 years, they've seen a lot of stuff, and so-and-so's got this new cool thing that they've seen, they want to try. And you have them talk about it and explore, like, why might it work? Why might it not work? And you're just honest about it, and you come to a conclusion. Maybe you try it on something, maybe you do an internal project and try it out and say, okay, that worked this way, or it didn't work this way, or what do we got to do next? And, it's a little slower, but being open and honest and working together to solve it, and to figure out what the best path forward is really it's really positive. So
You ever see a danger, or you're maybe either from that technology coming in or from a client saying, hey, I saw this whatever on a Facebook video or something? I mean, you find that you've got to kind of temper expectations sometimes on maybe technology that isn't real, even if there's a video out there about it somewhere, or do you run into that very often?
I don't think I have.
Okay.
Honestly. I'm sure it happens. I don't think I have yet, maybe I should say instead. Sure. Most of our clients kind of trust us to say, okay, this is cool, or what should we do next? Or this is cool, go look at it, tell me what you think. I guess I have a client who often says, hey, what do you think about this? And I'll say, that's new, that's cool, I haven't seen it before, let's try it. Or I'll say, here's what my concerns are, or whatever. So we get that a little bit, but I have not had to deal with somebody saying, I want you to use X, Y, Z. All right, we can try something new. We can try a new thing I haven't touched before, and I'm happy to go learn it. That's fun. But it hasn't come up yet for me. So.
Okay. I got one more question, but last call for questions before we wrap up here. So, Jeremy, the last one I've got, and I'll leave it to you to add anything at the very end. But Well, let's pretend like I remember what my question was for a second. No, your clients, are they mostly kind of no idea about the coding world, or a little mix, or I mean, are you talking to other software engineers a lot of times? Or?
It is okay. Those people who know the business case but don't have any coding experience, or people who have a little bit of it. So CEOs to CIOs to IT managers to software devs. We do a bunch of staff augmentation as well. So let's say you got 5 software developers and you need 7 for a little bit.
Oh,
so
really?
Add
Okay.
2 more. So we'll provide people for time to do that. To augment. So in that case, you're working with a software manager, or a development manager who knows what they're doing all the time. It's all the way. In my role, I typically work with people who have a little less experience.
Okay.
But I mean, some of the guys I work with, or some of the gals I work with, have a lot.
Okay.
And so it's not hard if you just tell the truth, and
Yeah.
you're not trying to fake stuff, right? You say, this is what I know how to do, and you go from there. So.
Staff augmentation is interesting. I didn't realize. So how's that work? Is that usually 90 days or a year, or
Whatever they want?
And
we have really good developers.
okay, and so they just
Sometimes hiring really experienced people is hard.
sure.
So having the ability to say, hey, we need somebody to come in and just write code at a high level for 6 months to a year,
Okay.
or 3 months, or whatever it is valuable. So
That's easy for them, or I don't know if you've done it yourself, to just jump in without the years of background on the project and just start coding, or
it is difficult. It's actually one of the things we I hate to say practice, but it is one of the things that you get really good at.
Okay.
Because, we tend to bounce around between projects, so it's okay to ramp up on what's going on quickly. And that's kind of one of the things that we make sure our guys can do and are comfortable doing is, hey, can you get going quickly on something you haven't seen before?
I see.
Okay. And our goal is to be more efficient than if you just hired some off the street, right? You want to come in quickly, have a positive impact very quickly, do whatever you can need us to get done, and then if you don't need any more help, there you go.
Wow.
So,
well, I'll chalk that up as what I learned today for sure. So that's a really interesting. Is that common?
Mm-hmm.
Is it?
Yep.
Wow. That's a part of your industry I had no idea about, I guess. So.
I don't do it as much
Sure.
because of kind of where I'm at in the organization and kind of where my role is at, but we do quite a bit of that. So.
All right, Jeremy. Well, thanks so much. We're going to give you and our audience about 20 minutes back of their day that maybe they didn't realize they were going to get. Well, first, where can they find more information about Omnitech?
So omnitechinc.com.
Omnitechinc.com.
Omnitech-inc.com is our website. You can talk to me. You can talk to our salespeople. You can talk to whatever.
Okay, so omnitech-inc.com
Yep.
is where you find Omnitech's home.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So again, everybody, thanks so much. Thanks to Jeremy for joining me today for another great conversation. I always enjoy my time with you. Again, everybody, check us out on YouTube for a recording of today's conversation. That's Elevate Rapid City. You can find all of our trainings and other resources at elevaterapidcity.com. You can find more information about Jeremy and his team at omnitech-inc.com. And with that, again, Jeremy, do you have anything else for us to close us out?
It's been a great almost 2 years here. I've been looking forward to many more coming. So.
Great, as am I. All right, thanks everybody. Have a great day.